Welcome to the Divine Gossip Podcast. I am your host, Mackenzie Foster. I'm a psychic medium, witch, tarot reader, spiritual mentor, paranormal investigator, and honestly, I'm just a really curious woman who loves diving deep into how this universe works. I started this podcast to share with you what I'm learning about intuition, the unseen world, healing, magic, and most importantly, becoming the most authentic and honest version of myself. Not the perfect one, but the real one. And if you're down for that too, grab your journal, keep an open mind and heart, and let's get into today's video. Hello, and welcome back to the Divine Gossip Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie, as you heard in the new intro. I'm actually so glad we're doing a take two with Amy here. We had technical difficulties at first because I forgot to say a bunch of things that I needed to say. One, thank you for being here, all listeners. I hope you guys like the new intro and outro. I recorded a new one the other day, so I'll be plugging that in. I forgot to mention that the first take, so everything happens for a reason. Look at that. I have beautiful Amy here, who is a medium, an author, a spiritual hypnotist, and the founder of Sensorium Hypnosis. Amy has a background in rehabilitation counseling and over 2 decades of experience in healing and spiritual work. And she guides clients and students around the world in aligning their higher self and purpose. Amy, thank you so much for being here and for working with me and being flexible with all the difficulties and stuff. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Mackenzie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I would love to just dive right into your story and how you got to where you are today with all of your amazing titles and everything you do. It looks very interesting. I'm very excited to ask you a million questions.
Oh, thank you, Mackenzie. Um, as you may know from reading my profile and a little bit of background, over a decade ago, I had a near-death experience. But before I even share more about that experience with you, I will say that, I believe I came into this world a very spiritual person. Even in my childhood, I remember thinking differently than a lot of kids, processing differently. I was very shy. I had, lots of childhood trauma and also fierce understanding of spirit and divine source. I went to a very small Catholic school in upstate New York, and I don't have any religious trauma to speak of. In fact, I was very fortunate because I always jokingly say the nuns who raised me were so full of love and light. They were very gentle, very nurturing, very maternal. And so I consider myself to have grown up in a community that really understood how to take care of each other, and had a sort of heightened sensitivity, especially in working with children. I share that love for kids and for women in particular who are struggling in their lives. I also, as a child, used to get downloads of music and began to write piano music and lyrics at a very young age. And at the time, I didn't think that was anything unusual, except when I share with people that my formal education and discipline around music was pretty shallow. And so All I can say is that the music came through me rather than from me. And I think at that early beginning, around maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, I really understood the concept of spirituality and how the spirit world could move through us to create healing. And, at that juncture in my life, it was sound healing, healing through music. And I had no idea that it would take me down this path later in my adulthood. So I'll set the stage by saying that. I'll also share that, about 15 years ago, I was struck with, at the time, mysterious illness. I struggled with chronic fatigue. I had low-grade fevers. For those out there with autoimmune disease or neuroimmune issues, as is my case, you understand the concept of debilitating fatigue and chronic pain to the nth degree, right? The pain was in my nerves and in my bones. And at the very worst stage of my condition, the longest I could stay awake was 2 hours a day. I was that exhausted, and the energy that I did have was spent down from the pain, the physical pain I was navigating from this condition. Fast forward, I needed to leave my corporate role because, for obvious reasons, I was failing. My physical body was failing, and I had no answers. And I spent 5 years trying to find answers. And when I did find a diagnosis and some answers, I realized ultimately there's no cure and there's no treatment. There's no standard protocol. In fact, and I hope this is taken in the spirit in which it's meant, but there are many people with very rare forms of cancer and other conditions and I've watched dozens and dozens of those people as my clients, and even in my circle of friends or family, who climbed out of rare cancers quicker than people with autoimmune and neuroimmune conditions, simply because we're kind of the forgotten population. Because, many of us live relatively long lives, even though the quality of our life can be challenging, there hasn't been a whole lot of research scientists or medical people really trying to wrap their heads around root causes and cures. And so the best any of us can do is maybe finding some medications or fleeting solutions that may turn down the volume of our symptoms down from a 10 to maybe a 9 or an 8. So through all of that, my illness got worse. I had a near-death experience. My soul left my body. My experience in this higher realm was clairaudient and clairsentient. So, Mackenzie, what I mean by that is I could feel emotions and sensations moving through me, and I could hear telepathically a voice or a thought that asked this question. And the question was this: are you ready to leave Earth? And in that moment, before I could even think or respond, I had the cumulative impact and emotion that my child would experience given my early departure. And so I knew in that moment, Mackenzie, that as much pain as I was in, as few answers as I had, and as grim as my future looked, that I had a soul contract with my son to come back and to do everything in my power to manifest better health and just a better life, and to serve as a support and mentor to him in his own spiritual, emotional evolution here.
What a story. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm feel inclined to ask you, um, if you don't mind me asking today, do you still live with your autoimmune disease at an 8 or 9? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit
Oh no.
on me. Is there a way to? Oh, that's okay. I can hear you now. Did you ask me if I still had my autoimmune condition?
I asked you if it was still at an 8 or 9 today.
Great question. So, Mackenzie, like most people with, I have a neuroimmune condition. It's a long one, myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's inflammation of the brain and the spinal cord. Um, the rest of my story, which explains how I've learned to turn the volume down, is kind of an interesting one. When I had this near-death experience, the other piece of wisdom or information that was downloaded when my soul left my body, or the statement rather, is, if we send you back, you will live your life more intentionally. I had no idea what that meant. But what I can tell you is I started to receive downloads from Spirit about what that meant. And so at this time in my life, I left corporate America. I had a son who was about 9 at the time. I was navigating a divorce. I was, I think, a year and a half in a new home. And my elderly mother had moved across the country from New York to the Seattle area to live with me. So I'm chronically ill. I've got a diagnosis, but no cure, no treatment. And I'm the caretaker for my son. And now I've got this elderly mom coming here, who's now a part of my life formula. So in the days to follow the near-death experience, as I was walking down the hall, not too far from where I'm sitting now, a voice came through and it said, "Amy, you're going back to school." Mackenzie, that was crazy. Given the situation and the state of mind I was in, right? This near-death experience did not lead to a spontaneous healing. Okay, my path was long and arduous. But so I get this next piece of information. I'm going back to school. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I knew it was that same voice. And I knew that in the days to follow, more information would have to be revealed. Because I didn't know. I had already had 7 years of college. I was 25 years into a very satisfying, productive career. So a few days later, the voice said, "You're going back to be a hypnotist." Well, Mackenzie, that was even crazier. That was next level crazy. And I knew then, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was that same voice. It was spirit moving through me. Not, it wasn't coming from me, because I had never been to a hypnotist. I had never known a hypnotist. I had never, ever expressed an interest in being a hypnotist. None whatsoever. It wasn't even anywhere on my radar. So then I started researching, and I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, for one, I really, if I was ever going to heal at all, I would at least need to work at home. And I would need to be able to control my own schedule based on, what I can do given the season or course of my condition. So I research a local place, semi-local to me. I move through the training, and I will say by the grace of God, Mackenzie, because again, that was hard. One of the hardest things, but at that point I was walking in faith, blind faith, quite honestly. Finished the program as quickly as I could, and I finished in February 2016, and I opened my business in February 2016. And here we are, right? Little did I know through my journey, I am going to answer your question of, have I succeeded in lowering the volume? Hypnosis really was a launch pad for me then, studying metaphysics and furthering my education gradually in metaphysics, learning energy healing, and over the last 10 years, learning the most sophisticated tools and techniques, not only of hypnosis, but spiritual hypnosis. I teach a form of mystical meditation, which is incredible, Mackenzie. It is a combination of metaphysical healing, hypnosis, self-hypnosis, by the way, and energy healing, self-energy healing. And for the last 5 years, I've really worked on refining this. What it has done for me is miraculous, so much so that as I began to integrate some of these other tools into my practice, not only were my clients getting better quicker, and they were learning tools that they could take home to turn down the volume on their own symptoms, but I began to feel better, right? I wasn't, when I stopped focusing on trying to find a cure, right, or a treatment using the Western medicine model, and I started to focus on just simply turning the volume down, it was incredible, incredible. And now, I have, when I use these types of skills, including channeling and convening with higher realms, I can get my pain level down to a 2 or 3, which for me is incredible. So I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. Thank you so much for sharing that again. I am very, very fascinated by your entire life story. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of questions.
Mhm.
I'm glad. Thank you for sharing about your autoimmune. Um, do you call it a disorder? I don't want to misspeak.
Well, it's okay. Condition, disorder.
Okay. Okay.
There's a whole, yeah, I mean, some people call it a syndrome, but that never sat well with me. It's not-
Yeah, I'm the same
but
way. Like with
either way.
words. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you for sharing about your autoimmune condition because I actually, every time I hear someone say they have that, it's and I think this is a very popular assumption or observation. I always am like, what do you mean you don't look sick? You know what I mean? Like, I don't actually think that, but I never have
Exactly.
understood
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Right. I've never understood it to
Yeah.
that depth because it's inside, it's internal, it's not always so obvious. So thank you for giving me an insight into all of that. I think a lot of people needed to hear
Yeah.
that. Um, I
Oh,
really want
well,
to
and
ask
Mackenzie, the
you,
other, oh, sure, go ahead. Uh-huh.
I was just gonna ask you when as you were studying hypnosis, what the most fascinating thing to you was in your study. Because I'm in college right now. I'm studying more the business side of
Mhm.
things right now for marketing and leadership.
Mhm.
And I've always thought
Mhm.
about like changing my major to something more spiritual and wellness related. But I don't think I'm going to. I only have a year left, but it's fine. But I'm just wondering, like, how was that for you? How was that learning process for you of like, what was the craziest, most psychological, scientific thing that would blow people's minds? I feel like you probably got so much of mind-blowing info.
Mhm. Yeah. Honestly, the real learning didn't really take place in the training, the classroom training. The real learning took place once I just jumped in and I started
Mm-hmm.
practicing. And honestly, one of the most amazing, fascinating experiences that I had was in, a lot of people, when they go back to get certified as a hypnotist, you can meet some very, very cool people. And there was one person in particular who was, and a lot of people who do this, by the way, come from a corporate background or they're already working in the healing arts. And this is just an add on, right? Which in a lot of ways was the case for me. My background, I worked in a chronic pain clinic. I've worked in, other medical institutions, in physical rehab. I also worked in addictions and mental health. So I had a really, really strong background. But this gentleman who I became good friends with was a colon therapist and a massage therapist and was already working in the healing arts. So he and I really, really worked well together and used to do trades. And interestingly, when I first started my training in hypnosis, there was, just a tiny little introduction of past life regression. And I honestly didn't give it a whole lot of authority or credence as a deep self-healing tool or therapeutic tool, and really didn't set out to use it until a close friend of mine and I, from this program, exchanged past life regression sessions. Mind blowing. It changed my life in a lot of ways, and it changed the way that I approached hypnosis more from a spiritual angle. So I will say, the real learning takes place when you start working with clients, and I think some exceptional learning can take place in trades that other practitioners, if it's somebody who aligns with your way of thinking, or somebody who might have an advanced understanding of, a piece of the healing journey that you might be less educated in or have less exposure. He had learned extensive amounts about past life regression and soul fragmentation and a lot of things that are borrowed from, shamanism and things. And so, without him even realizing it, he was a great mentor to me. And on the flip side, um, he confided in me that he had this fear of flying. And could I do hypnosis work on him to help him get over the fear of flying? And that was the first session where I really integrated spiritual practices. And it took one session, and he was able to move through his fear of flying. So you learn by doing, you learn by practicing, not necessarily the textbook or trying to be another version of your instructor's methodology.
That makes total sense. Yeah. And how did, when you say you're a medium, what does that entail exactly? Because I know a lot of practitioners have different meanings for it. And how did that come into play as you were getting
Yeah.
certified as a hypnotist?
Yeah, yeah. So I realized all throughout this entire process of, becoming and evolving as a metaphysical healer, that spirit was working intensely with me by downloading techniques and tools or refining what I was using, or even challenging me in my personal life and professional life. Some of my deepest aha moments were spirit calling me out, even on my personal life, as a tool for helping enhance my perspective and be stronger in the world of metaphysics. So, at any rate, I think at first the mediumship was in the form of questions for my clients that came through me that cut right to the core of why they were in my space, right? People may reach out to me to say, Amy, my drinking is gotten out of control, or I think I have a food addiction, or Amy, I'm navigating the worst work stress related to my boss in a toxic work environment. But when people come into my space, that's not always the problem. That's a symptom of something deeper. And so to have my guides be directing and redirecting our conversation through the questions and sending signals to me through my body that tell me when my client has just said something that is extraordinarily important in their healing journey is so helpful. So that's one of the ways. And by the way, Mackenzie, not everybody is comfortable or open to mediumship, but there's a way to allow spirit to move through you without being too terribly obvious. Right? People aren't coming for a reading. My job is to help them self-heal. So I'm not giving them the answers, but I am doing a light soul dusting to help them connect with their truth, right? And to begin to piece together a formula for their life that resonates best with their soul. The other way I use mediumship is, in a more classic sense, grief and loss. People come, they've lost a loved one, usually unexpectedly. Over the years, I've seen, people who have lost children, or parents where there's lots of unhealed trauma, or inner stirrings of grief or past hurt that comes up through the event of the parent passing. In my role, a lot of people do reach out to me because I can help connect them to their loved one in spirit and bring through healing messages, sometimes in the form of questions, sometimes in the form of higher wisdoms or insights that will help them be able to manage the the surge of feelings and emotions moving through them. So I hope that
Cool.
helps.
Yeah, totally does. Relate to you. I love the term that you use, soul dusting, when people aren't completely open to going all in with mediumship. I experience the same thing when I do tarot card readings. People look at tarot card
Uh-huh.
readings. Well, a lot of people use look at tarot card readings as like not as spiritual or psychic. It's just more like a party trick kind of thing. And then I'll kind
Uh-huh.
of hear their loved ones come through and I can kind of get in that way,
Yes.
you know? So I know what you're talking
Uh-huh.
about. That's really
Absolutely. Yep,
yeah.
it's a tool, right? It's a tool. Like there are
Mhm.
so many tools, and as mediums or psychics or metaphysical healers, we've got to choose the tools that resonate best with what we're trying to achieve. There's no perfect way, or perfect tool. It's whatever resonates with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and whatever facilitates the client's highest good, that they need.
Yeah,
And when it
completely.
comes to your near-death experience, I'm so interested in hearing more about that specifically because
Mhm.
in the past year or so, near-death experiences, or NDEs, as people call it nowadays, have been coming up so much for me because ever since I watched the show The OA on Netflix, have you seen that show?
Mhm. No.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you watch TV that much, but it's literally a show all about near-death experiences. It is extremely
Mhm.
spiritual and really, really cool. I highly recommend it. But um, I mean, it's a little dramatized for TV, of course, but it's still like the messages in it are really cool.
Yeah,
But it's always fascinated me, like being a medium myself, and I go ghost hunting too, so I'm like really
uh-huh.
into the beyond the veil kind of themes. I would love to
Yeah,
know through your own near death experience and healing journey with that, how did your understanding of the subconscious and the spiritual realms evolve? Like, what are your beliefs around where do spirits and ghosts lie and all of that? I'm
yeah,
curious to know, like,
yeah,
what you've gathered.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so interesting. Most of us have a very or at least I did, an embryonic understanding of the spirit realms, right? I used to think of dimensions kind of like this, right? But what I've
Mhm.
realized is, well, in the best way I can describe my understanding of the dimensions actually came through a trans channeler, who was channeling a uh, physicist from the 1800s, and he described the different dimensions like pieces of Swiss cheese with holes in them, right? That the dimensions are all right next to each other, but there are times when the holes in in between line up between our dimension and other dimensions so that we can experience those other dimensions. So I thought that was a brilliant analysis. So, what I've come to realize as a medium in my near death experience, and even more so in working so much with spirit, is that we're taking up the same space, we're just vibrating at different frequencies. And so, in order for us to connect with spirit, we have to be right? We have to be resonating at a higher frequency as they're lowering their frequency so that we can hear them or see them or smell them or even touch them or experience them in real time. And so I think they're always all around us, Mackenzie. In reality, it's just that some of us are more open or more receptive. And so, that answers part of your question of how it changed my understanding of the spirit realm. The other thing is you had asked how it changed my understanding of the subconscious. And that's really a deep question that I actually had to think about for a few minutes, is that, who knows what's stored in our subconscious mind, right? I think a lot of mainstream therapists think in terms of like things that happen in our childhood. But in hypnosis, through many of our tools, we can go back to in utero, which I've certainly had some of my clients experience that, right? And the trauma that's stored in our subconscious mind, and even more so in the physical body, in the cells of our body. But we can even go back to past lives. And there have been some spiritual leaders and authors who claim that we even will store in our subconscious mind knowledge of how we leave this plane. In other words, how we die, we already know. So now we're tapping into, agreements and soul contracts and things that happened before we even came to this realm. And I love to be able to use some of my tools to help my clients tap in to that even deeper level subconscious, because, the subconscious is where we create problems going back maybe many lifetimes, but also the subconscious mind is where we find solutions. And again, drawing from the wisdom of many lifetimes. So I hope that answers your question.
What I love about, I could listen to you speak for hours, first of all. I feel like you have so much life experience that just in this lifetime, I can't even imagine what you've been through in others. But
Oh my
wow,
goodness, I don't want to know. Oh,
seriously, yeah. Um, That's really, really fascinating. I completely agree with everything you've said. And something kind of random that popped into my mind that I would love to know your opinion about is, and me being involved in like the ghost hunting world and all of that. There's
yeah.
always this theory in other ghost hunting videos that I watch of people trying to get evidence of spiritual communication on camera. They have this theory
Mhm.
sometimes of like purgatory or like stuck spirits or spirits that haven't moved on or souls that haven't moved
Yeah.
on to the light or
Yeah.
whatever. So I'm curious of what
Yeah.
your opinion on that is.
Yeah. Mackenzie, I've done lots of house clearings over the years. I worked in real estate for a short while, and it caught on to brokers that, hey, maybe some of these houses are sitting and not moving off the market because something happened here. Well, as you know from your work, energy sits, homes carry energy, right? Sometimes the energies are attached to the land or the space, or they're just energies floating through the house from, decades of other inhabitants living in that space. As far as, stuck spirits, I do think there are earthbound spirits. The most common phone call or inquiry I get is knocking. People will call me and they'll say, Amy, there's been this crazy knocking going on in my home or my building for, weeks or months. And I prod a little deeper and it's like, is there any pattern to it? Well, yeah, come to think of it, it's always 4 in the afternoon. And it's, when it's the winter, when it starts getting dark, and again at maybe 11:30 p.m., like clockwork. And, I do think there's a number of things going on there. One, it may be an earthbound spirit, but the other piece of it is, Mackenzie, I don't think most spirits, including the earthbound ones, or the ones who are in dimensions that have a closer frequency match to the earth plane, don't necessarily recognize the ruckus they're creating and don't have any ill intent. And I know that's not necessarily sexy or popular belief, but most of them just need, of the ones who want to be seen or heard, they simply want to be acknowledged, typically to get information through, after which time they usually will leave, as long as they're handled with love and compassion and gentleness.
Okay, awesome. I love that answer. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that I've totally experienced stuck energy. I think that I
Mhm.
also believe in like energy loops. Like it just hasn't been cleared, so
Uh-huh.
it just keeps looping and not necessarily a soul, right? Like I've seen
Yes.
that before. Yeah.
Mhm.
I also was gonna say something. Um, I love the way you think about the dimensions. I think that makes way more sense. Oh, here's what I was going to ask is the souls that you believe are like they don't really understand the ruckus they're making. They're just trying to get a
Mhm.
communication across, or they don't understand how to move on, or whatever the situation
Mhm.
is. Do you think that
Yeah.
those souls or spirits were living people that weren't really that spiritual, so they didn't really like they're kind of stuck in their humanness in that way? Does that make sense?
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah. So there have been a few isolated situations where people have come to me because they think they have an attachment. I absolutely believe in attachments. I had a very interesting case of a young girl whose mother was a client of mine, so she understood what I did, and she said, "Amy, I, you know me. I had seen or met the daughter in a few, quick, interactions, and she said, I don't want to take my daughter to a psychiatrist or a doctor. I don't think she has mental illness. I don't think she's losing her mind, but I really think there could be an attachment. Can you see her?" And absolutely, super happy to see this young girl. Well, as bizarre as it sounds, I'm just going to say it. She had an adoptive brother of hers who had died from a drug overdose. And I truly believe with every fiber of my being, he was attaching to her. He needed her energy to stay alive. And I did an intervention here using multiple tools to remove his energy. But then I also had to go into their home because lots of bizarre things were happening. Things were moving, electronics going off in the middle of the night and sounds. And so I think these spirits, obviously they lived here on the earth plane, and why are they not moving to higher realms at this point? And can mediums There's a whole type of mediumship where the mediums are helping these stuck souls pass on to higher realms. Um, yes, I mean, I think it's possible to help souls move along through our work. Um, I
Yeah.
do think that spirits still feel the feeling of fear, but I also know they cannot speak. And so mediums should be in greater demand because we become the translator. We're somehow able to download and translate spirit communication into spoken form and coherent thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've experienced all of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
That's really, really cool.
Mhm.
I also wanted to ask you before we run out of time here, since
Mhm.
you teach, to change topics, since you teach
Mhm.
self hypnosis and
Mhm.
intuition skills and all of that, for people who are listening who may want to develop their gifts or do self hypnosis or other
Yeah.
spiritual skills, what are some common barriers that people face when trying to access their own inner healer, and what could they do right now to try to bridge those gaps?
Oh gosh. Well, I think a profound question we could each benefit from asking ourselves when we're moving through something is just simply this. Is this thought or behavior coming from the higher self or the trauma self, right? Or the shadow, right? I think that's a really, really important question, a deep, deep question we can all ask ourselves. So we can start there. Um, the other concept around self-healing, and then I'll answer the part B, which is why people get stuck or what are the barriers. But the other concept that I outline in my book, Whispers Beyond the Veil, Channeled Teachings Inspired by the Spirit World, is called the listening prayer, right? Whether the word prayer resonates with you or not, or you'd rather use the word meditation, doesn't matter. Oftentimes, when we're trying to manifest something, we start with, I want, I want, I want, I need, I need, I need. But I explore through the spirit world what's called the listening prayer. And it's simply creating space, closing your eyes, sitting someplace quiet, and asking the question or making the statement, Spirit, please come closer. And instead of asking, see what comes through. I mean, my favorite prayer in meditation, Mackenzie, is, Spirit, what is it you want me to know? That's it, right? And then we're
Yeah.
not leading this ritual or practice from the egoic mind that we are trying. I mean, just that question alone helps us recalibrate to a higher frequency. We're in greater alignment with the spirit world just by being present and open and willing to listen, right, to the higher wisdom that comes through. And so that's what I could say in terms of like tiny little things we can do to influence our path. The greatest barriers is to people's own self healing. Mackenzie, lack of self compassion, right?
Mm,
Allowing ourselves. lack of self-compassion, living in the past, right? Instead of focusing on what's right in front, right? And being present. Human engineering, trying to fix everything and everyone around them instead of focusing and journeying inward to see, what is it in me that's inviting these dynamics, right? Putting a band-aid on a hemorrhaging wound, right? I mean, that's just another way of saying denial. Like, if I ignore this, it'll go away, right? Perfectionism, that's a huge one. I should, right? I know when I was young, what do? We compare ourselves to everyone around us. And my message is forget it. Your soul is unique. Your journey is unique. Put down the human lens of fear and scarcity and pick up the spiritual lens to understand, like, who am I as a soul? What is my higher purpose? Right? Because when we ask, when we're open and we're willing to ask ourselves those deeper questions and release the illusion and the shoulds of where we think we should be compared to our neighbor, then we're already beginning to recalibrate to the frequency of the higher self.
Yeah, what an amazing shortcut you have of getting past the egoic mind and your human self of fear and limiting beliefs and all of that. You go straight to the source, silence
Yeah.
and cut out the noise, and then ask someone above who doesn't have an egoic mind. That's genius. I
Yeah.
love that hack.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Oh. Well, and we all, Mackenzie, we are all mediums of a sort. It's more the willing ones versus the chosen ones. It's those who pay attention to the gifts of the spirit and work toward refining the gifts. And that's what my book is all about, is helping people connect with, the higher self and divine source as they know it. Maybe it is the higher self or the spirit realm or some divine energy. Whatever it is, it's a journey of getting to know our deeper soul purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start seeing the effects of blending spiritual hypnosis with, subconscious reprogramming and deep healing and all these tools that you use, how do you distinguish between the healing that happens in the mind versus healing that happens in the soul? Like, how do you
Yeah.
see both play out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes great sense. It's a wonderful question. I more of a mainstream hypnosis is focused on changing behaviors. Mine is my approach, right? So when the mind changes, it changes our perspective. It may even change how we process information that comes through. We'll know when it's a soul deep healing because our whole life changes. It's not just one behavior. It begins, right? The higher wisdom that you connect with begins to permeate into every area of your life, so much so that there's no turning back. The wisdom is so loud that there's no turning back. Not only does it change your life and everything in it, it becomes perpetual change, right? Because now we're starting at the point in the work that I do, we're working on the relationship you have with yourself and not just the behavior or the problem that you're bringing to me.
absolutely. That's very important. Because you said
Mhm.
I think it is important for people to hear that is why I asked that because when I feel like when I started doing like more I don't know if this is even a thing, but more like surface level meditations of just like quick fixes
Mhm.
to get rid of my anxiety in the moment versus like going back in my childhood and healing a memory and doing like source memory
Yeah.
healing or like
Yeah.
past life regression, all that, like I started to move throughout my days with long term effects of less
Yeah.
anxiety, less overthinking, more peace, So I
Yeah.
totally agree. Um, have you ever
Completely.
seen have you ever seen Avatar, the movie? Like the blue
Yeah.
people one?
Uh-huh. Oh, yes.
Do you
Yes.
know?
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Love it.
okay. Um, you remind me of the actress who plays Grace, the scientist, Sigourney Weaver. Just so you know,
Oh,
I love
uh-huh.
her a lot.
Uh-huh. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's
Thank you. Well,
Avatar's my
oh,
Avatar's my favorite
I
movie. So I think of her. She's like this really, really, really smart scientist who just is obsessed with the way the planet they're on works, and you talk like
uh-huh.
her. It's really cool. So you should watch it again.
Oh, I love it. Well, I saw the latest one with my son,
Oh,
who's a college student, and I'm like, yes, I want to see the 3D one. And but it was so long. We
oh my
we took
God.
off late at night. We're falling asleep. I'm like, oh, we got to come back and watch the part we slept through.
Yeah,
So
the new one's really long. Yeah,
it's
it,
so
yeah.
good, though. So good. I absolutely loved it. Mackenzie, one thing I want to impart, if I could, I before we um, close here is, you know, the hypnosis part is about resolving subconscious conflicts, right? And those are the
Mhm.
things that hover beneath the surface of our awareness that we need to illuminate, right? To really understand and to process. But the spiritual hypnosis piece is about dropping the injury of the things that happened to us, past or
Mhm.
present, and calling out the deeper wisdom and using that wisdom, right, to impact the seasons ahead, right? So it's
Mhm.
very much
Yeah.
a modality of self empowerment. In the high, if this is done well, the higher mind is choosing the memories to go back to that are most poignant to their life and their themes in the here and now. So it's not that we're voyeuristically dipping back to whatever painful memories happened in the past. It's that the higher mind is deciding what's important and poignant now, right? How is
Yeah.
this poignant now, right? And the spiritual part is, how do we fix this? Because it's different
Right.
for every client. This is not a formulaic self-healing modality. This is the answers are within you. And it's my job to be more that of a coach or a guide in helping my clients find their truth, their path, their formula.
Yeah, that's why I love work like yours because, so many people talk about when they go to traditional talk therapy, they're just constantly harping on the most painful thing. And it's just like, how, like it's not deep,
Yes,
deep healing about it. Yeah. So, yeah,
completely.
for sure.
Well, and more so the people, especially in the last few seasons, have been business owners. So which is very exciting, Mackenzie, because when they do the deep personal transformation, it equates to amazing business transformation. So keep that in mind
Mhm.
in the business world. That you move into, that there's always room for the spiritual in the corporate world. And the corporate world is
Absolutely.
just on the cusp of understanding that. So good for you.
For sure. Thanks. Yeah, I've totally seen proof of that. Every time I do, um, I focus my energy on what I do want instead of what I don't want, something as simple as that. Or when I do
Yes.
like deep, vulnerable, like open myself up to all the love and light in front of me, healing, I see
Uh-huh.
results every time in the physical realm. So
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yes. Yes. Manifestation. It's
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
In your my last question for you, in your book, do
Mhm.
you go into your life story as well as the teachings in the book? Like, do you know what I mean? Or do you have a podcast or
No,
anything? I feel like I could just listen to you
I
for hours.
do. I do. Oh, thank you. It's Healer Within. And it's
Oh,
on
really? Okay,
Spotify.
cool.
I have it on YouTube. I can drop the links to you to include if you'd like. I don't get into my life story. It's my first, it's channeled wisdom. So it's my first
Okay.
automatic writing piece where a medium comes through and shares wisdom, and it is somewhat of a spiritual curriculum. And each chapter has journal prompts. And so, without even realizing it, as I was writing the book, Mackenzie, I was writing what I was hoping later on spiritual workshop facilitators would integrate into their workshops, because it is a very simple book to read. It's not pages and pages and pages of deep metaphysical stuff that at every chapter you're like, whoa, what did I just read? Because of the journal prompts, you're taking what's shared in the lessons and you're processing it from your own perspective. It's applied knowledge, if that makes sense. So nothing about my life story, but yeah, it's about the healer within all of us. And the purpose of the book really is to help people align with the most authentic version of themselves and to understand how they're already using their gifts in their work. Even if they're working in a business realm, we're all becoming, we're all refining. None of us are a finished product. And this book just helps us along the way. Another tool for recalibrating.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that you have journal prompts inside your book and you call it is applied learning. I feel like that's more of what we need nowadays with so much like overconsumption of information, learning how to actually apply and use the information you're being taught is awesome. So, very, very cool. Love that. I will link all of her books and all your book and your podcast and your website all below so people can check you out. Of course. But is there anything else you would like to share with us and the listeners?
Mackenzie, just in closing, I opened a new branch of my company called Critical Mindset Group. I'll put the link there. And that's just working with business owners and business leaders on all kinds of things, coaching. I'm using my business development background in a multitude of industries to help my business clients scale their businesses. I'm helping them through personal crises and business crises to come out feeling grounded and supported and all the things. And I'm having great fun. I've been doing this work for a decade, but I just decided it was time to open a designated branch of my company where I am totally administering to C-suite executives and business owners because their needs are pretty unique. And I've just been loving it. absolutely loving it. So I encourage people to check that out as a resource.
That's amazing. I will definitely be checking out every single thing you mentioned
Mhm.
because that's my jam. You're speaking my language for sure. So, thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Amy, for just sharing all of your information and insight and your life story with such authenticity. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you to the audience for working with our little technical difficulty of a delay. We appreciate you.
Oh, Mackenzie, thank you so much. I've loved our time. Thank you for your colorful questions and such an enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
Course. Thank you to all the listeners for tuning in, watching on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed and you're watching this, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel or add Divine Gossip to your library. So I know how many of you are listening. I can see it. That'd be great. I appreciate you guys. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's Divine Gossip episode. I hope you enjoyed it or maybe even learned something new. If you did, it would mean the absolute world to me if you left a rating and review wherever you're listening. It helps other beautiful souls like yourself find this podcast, find me, and join the DG community. If you have any spiritual questions for me, any haunted stories you want my take on, any topic or guest suggestions, if you want to be a guest yourself, anything and everything, you can fill out the Divine Gossip Google form linked in the description of this episode so I can hear from you because you are literally a part of what I create here. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.